and welcome back to another episode of Chat with Brandy. This is episode number 4. So this episode, along with next week's episode, is going to cover the last 2 of the frequently asked questions series. So it kind of covers 2 different questions that we're gonna be kind of diving into today and next week. So the first question is, when I finish someone's books or tax return and I'm showing them like their net income, their taxable income, that kind of stuff, I get this question a lot. Where did all my money go? And while I can't answer that specifically for you, I can teach you how to figure it out, and better yet, develop a plan so that you know exactly where your money is going and that you can tell your money exactly where to go. The second question is, which will be addressed in next week's episode mostly, is how much should I be putting away for taxes? So that's usually asked by people who are self-employed or for some reason aren't getting taxes taken off by their employer. So I will answer question 2 next week. And this week we are going to go on a deep dive of personal finance. So budgeting, debt repayment, what a healthy, personal finance world kind of looks like, and how to get you there. And I'm doing this because I'm a little bit nerdy and I am a personal finance enthusiast, I guess you could say. I'm not a financial advisor, but of course I do dabble in this world a lot. So I think that it will help some of you out, and it's kind of a win-win situation for both of us. So the focus for today's episode will be, like I said, personal and family budgeting. And the thing with budgeting is there's kind of 2 sides to it, okay? So there's the math side, which we're definitely going to talk about today. And I like to call that kind of like the brain of personal finance. So I'm going to teach you the formulas. I'm going to tell you what the knowledge that you need to do it. But there's this whole other side, and that's the emotional side, or the heart of it. So that's the part of you that really wants to get there. And I think I'm going to be relating this a lot to weight loss. Like, it just seems like it's such a linear analogy to make. You really want to do it. You know how to do it. You know the formula that it takes. Like, your calories in has to be lower than your calories going out. I think most of us know that, but that doesn't stop me from eating ice cream out of my freezer in the middle of the night last night, right? So you have to, that willpower has to be there, that motivation has to be there. And to get there, I think it's really important to set a goal that's really actionable and then be able to follow up on that motivation. At the end of the video, I will give you some tips, but really it comes from within. Like, it comes from you inside there. So I think with humans, like, we're so present driven, like we're so motivated by what is right in front of us right now. So how good that ice cream tastes, instead of, but I want to lose 5 pounds in 6 months, or, you know, how good it felt to just have that little bit of retail therapy, instead of thinking about my credit card statement that's going to come next month, right? So I think the answer is we really have to be thinking more about our future self and less about our present self, and forget about the past self. Like, the past self doesn't matter anymore, okay? So of course, you know, budgeting's not easy. It can reveal a lot of ugly truths, and like breaking any bad habit, it really will take a lot of willpower. But I believe in you, and I think that you can do it, and I think that, you know, we could probably do this together if we can go through all the math together. So let's get into it. So I just want to say I follow a few financial professionals, kind of. I don't subscribe to any one theory completely, so I kind of have like this mashup that works for my family, and we've kind of fine-tuned over the years, and you're gonna have to fine-tune your budget as well. Like, you're just gonna always have to come back to it and reiterate as things change. But some of my favorites are Gail Vaz-Oxlade from, she did those TLC shows, I think they were, that were like Till Death Do Us Part. I love her. Jesse Meckham from You Need a Budget, and then a little bit from Dave Ramsey. So there's some really good books, like they've all written really great books. I'll link them later, and some other resources as well. So step 1, we're gonna build a budget. So these are some of the items that you're gonna need, okay? So bank and credit card statements, I put for the last 3 months. If something in the last 3 months has been really odd for you, like let's say you won the lottery, or it was Christmas or something like that, you might wanna go back further. We're trying to get an average here. What we're really trying to do is track your spending and see what your spending habits are. So what you can measure, you can improve, right? So the last 3 months is what I put. If you have really irregular income, or you're self-employed like I am, I recommend looking at your last year's tax return. That's going to give you a really good idea of your yearly income, and then you can kind of just break it down by 12 in order to give you a good idea of your monthly income. And then a list of all your debts. This one might be tough, okay? So we're gonna want balances, interest rates, and a minimum monthly payment. So obviously, a great place to look for that would be like your credit card statements, your student loan statements, that kind of thing. Another really good place might be to pull your credit report. You can get a free credit report from Equifax, and I will link that later. And everybody should do that. Regardless of whether you have debt or not, it's a great idea to be pulling your credit report on a regular basis. Just to make sure there's nothing crazy going on, anything like that. Just keep yourself in the loop. The other thing is, if you have debts and collections, you are within your right to ask them for a written statement of what you owe, your interest rate, and your balance. So those are those are some suggestions. Payday loans, big ones, okay? So once we have all of this information together, we're gonna start building our budget. Okay. So the first thing we need to figure out is our monthly income, so total family income. So you're gonna include both partners if you're married. You're gonna include child tax benefit if you get that, support payments, your employment income, everything. And it's gonna be your after-tax income that we're really looking at here, okay? So again, if you need to consult your last year's tax return to see how much tax you paid, you reduce that, okay? That you're gonna come up with this number. If you're an employee, it's gonna be really easy for you to figure this out, okay? Then I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so, and the other thing that I want to say is if you're self-employed or your income fluctuates, I would really like you to budget conservatively. I'd like you to budget based on your lowest month, because if you get a Christmas bonus, for example, and you budget for that and then you don't get it, you're going to find yourself in trouble. I'd much rather you budget that you're not gonna get it and then get that windfall and be able to apply that to debt or savings or whatever, obviously. Okay, so now we have total family income. So in our example that we're using today, we have $5,000 for our total family income. Now we're gonna list all of our expenses, and I've broken them down by category for you. So in the housing expense category, you have your fixed expenses, which would be your monthly mortgage or rent payment, your property tax, your insurance, and then your variable would be your utilities, so heat, water, and power. Notice I didn't put internet and telephone here. In your transportation category, you're gonna have your car lease or payment, and your insurance is fixed. And then and be careful if you're on bi-weekly on that. Some months are gonna have 3, right? And then your variable is gonna be your gas, maintenance, washes, and if you take a bus or public transportation or your Uber or taxi, that's all gonna fall in the transportation category. Then for life, this is kind of everything else that I haven't mentioned. So for fixed, some examples would be childcare, support payments, and cable and telephone usually aren't changing too much. Your variable is gonna be groceries, eating out and entertainment, clothing, gifts, home renos. So not necessarily home maintenance or repairs, but like if you're saving up to do something on your kitchen, something like that, that's a home reno. Travel, vacations, your gym membership, medical, basically everything else, right? And you're gonna find those when you go through your statements. You're like every little iPhone purchase or whatever, you're gonna probably put this in the life category. Then our last 2 categories, we have debt repayment. So this should be fixed, but it probably isn't right now for you guys. So when you're tracking this, average your last 3 months of payments and just kind of average it out. Same for savings, it should be fixed. It may not be right now. It may be a big fat 0 here, that's okay. But you're gonna wanna look at your RSP contributions, your pension. Like sometimes for some of your guys' cases, this is gonna get taken right off your check before you even see it. So make sure that you're including that. Your RESP, TFSAs, etc. So this, or even just money you're sticking in your mattress, right? That's savings. So at the end of it, if you add up all of those expense categories, your savings, your debt repayment, your life, and your housing and transportation, so you add up all of those expenses and you minus it from your income, if you're ending up at a positive number or you're ending up at 0, then you're good. You can stop watching this video right now. Like you're in great shape. If not, if you're ending up with a negative number, that means you're overspending. That means you're probably putting some of those expenses on credit card and not paying them back right away. So what I want you to do, this is the tough part. This isn't the tough part. It's implementing it that's the tough part. But what we're gonna do is you're gonna go back through all of your expenses that you listed out, and you're gonna put an S. I was gonna say it's red, but my daughter pointed out that this is orange. You're gonna put orange S beside it and say those are for things that you could shop around, or you could cut completely. So for example, we went back to maybe your telephone bill. Maybe you looked at that and you're like, hey, why is it so high? That's something you could possibly shop around. You could possibly shop around insurance, your cable, any of your utilities, right? And then the other thing that I want you to do is anything that's alarming. So you're probably gonna find some things. Maybe for me in the clothing category, I might be alarmed by that. So I would put a star beside that. Those are items that you really need to work on. These are items that you have to be a lot more aware of when you're spending, okay? So that's the beginning, okay? So now we're gonna go into, oh, and then in this category as well, if you have items that you pay for once a year, so for us, we pay for our property taxes once a year. So in your monthly budget, you're just gonna take that amount and divide it by 12, because then you can save for it every single month and you won't have that huge bill one time a year, okay? Okay, so we've done this, we've done our red star. Okay, so now I'm gonna give you the general guidelines of where you should be at with these categories, okay? This is where you may see, okay, I'm way out of whack in one category, and that's probably gonna help you with your cutting. So housing, the general guideline is 35%. So in our example of 5,000, that would be $1,750. If you are really above that, 35%, that's the definition of when you hear the word house poor. So that means that too much of your income is going to this house. So, I mean, sometimes you might be in a situation where you live in a really expensive city, or, you know, you have a house, like you're not gonna get out of it, but maybe we need to look at increasing this then so that this better fits your life. Otherwise, you're gonna be making such huge cuts to your transportation and your life categories that you're just not gonna be happy. You're gonna be house poor, okay? Transportation, 15%. So in this case, it would be $750. And then life, 25%. So in this case, it would be $1,250. And this one is probably where you're gonna be able to make the most cuts the easiest. And I shouldn't say easy, but it's not like you have to sell your house and get into a new one. It's like you have to cancel your gym membership, or you have to like rein it in when you're eating out, right? Those are more actionable things, I suppose. Okay, now we're getting into debt repayment. So this 15%, this isn't necessarily, you have to stay under this 15%. This is a health indicator. So it's saying that if you are paying your debts and you're gonna pay them all off within 3 years and you're within 15%, or in this case, $750, then congratulations, you have a healthy debt load. That's all that is saying, okay? But if your debt is higher and you have to make higher payments than 15% in order to get out of it within 3 years, so be it. That's what you have to do, okay? So this is just a health indicator. Savings is 10%. Okay, so in this case, it would be $500. And again, you're gonna add in all your RSP and pension and everything in there. Okay, so now we know the percentages. So now we will talk about debt repayment, but this is a really important step that you need to take before you start getting aggressive with debt. I want you to continue to make minimum payments on all of your debt. I don't want you to ruin your credit. I don't want you to get in trouble. So continue to make your minimum payments regardless of what that percentage looks like, okay? I really want you to concentrate the first while, and it's gonna depend on your income level, on building up an emergency fund. So if you have no emergency fund at all, I need you to get to 1,000 in this. The reason why that I want you to concentrate on this even before you're dead is because, okay, you're trucking along, you're trying your hardest, you're gonna get out of debt. The first issue that comes along, your furnace goes out or your car needs a repair, you're gonna have to stick that on a credit card. It's gonna derail your entire plan. And I don't want that for you. So I want you to really concentrate on getting an emergency plan going. So if in this example, it really wouldn't take long, because 10%, that's $500 on the $5,000 income example, it would only take you 2 months to get that emergency plan going, right? And then we can start getting aggressive with this. Unless, of course, you already have an RSP at 200 or something, you're just gonna top it up to 10. I don't want you to stop your RSP payments, but this is our first step, is building that emergency fund, okay? So let's fast forward a couple months. You have your $1,000 emergency fund built up. Now we're gonna start getting aggressive with our debt, okay? Now, you'll hear me say over and over, 3 years, 3 years. So I want you to get, my goal for you, and I hope for yourself, is to get out of debt in 3 years or less, no matter how big or small your debts are, okay? This is because 3 years is foreseeable. It is a long time, but it's not so long that you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think it's doable in terms of you really putting your head down and cutting your expenses and maybe bringing more income in, or whatever the case may be. For 3 years, I think is doable. Anything longer than that, you're gonna tap out at some point. And also, you know, and I will say this again, expect to struggle and expect to stumble. You're not gonna be perfect. I certainly am not perfect. And no journey of this is going to be perfect. Again, it's just like weight loss. There's going to be times where you eat a giant slice of chocolate cake, and it doesn't mean that you just quit. It doesn't mean that you just throw your hands up and say, this is it. I'm just going to be in debt forever. You don't need to live that life. Okay. Okay. So back to our 15%. We're going to do a calculation that's going to probably show you that most of you are probably not within that 15%. And that's probably why you're watching this video, but that's okay, because you can get out of it, okay? So here's our debt. So we're gonna list all our debts. So example 1, I only have one credit card at $10,000 I owe. It's 19% interest, and my minimum monthly payment is $150, okay? So I'm gonna get you to, sorry, I should have said this first. I hope you can see this. I'm gonna get you to go to this website, which is debt.ca/calculators. And you're gonna click the debt repayment calculator. You're gonna enter all of your debts in that calculator, along with their interest rates. And then in the desired payoff time frame box, you're gonna enter 36 months, which is 3 years. That is gonna calculate for you how much per month you would need to put on this debt or debts in order to get out of it in 3 years. Okay, so for this example, this $10,000 at 19% interest, it says I would need to make $366 a month for 36 months, and that would get me out of it. Now, 366 over 5,000 is only 7%, so obviously I'm good. I'm in a healthy ratio, and I could bump that up if I want to and get out of it in an even shorter period of time and save all that interest, right? That's great. We're doing awesome. Here's another example. Okay, my income's still 5,000. My credit card is 15,000 at 19%. My line of credit is 15,000 at 5%. My student loan is at 20,000 at 6%. Okay, you plug all that into this calculator, it tells you I need to make $1,600 a month for 36 months. That's more like 32% of my income. That's crazy. It feels crazy, but it is doable. It is doable, and you can do it. If this number is more like 40 or 50, I'm not saying that you need to file for bankruptcy or consumer debt. I'm not saying that, but it might benefit you to talk to a trustee. They are experts when it comes to this kind of debt load. And again, a bankruptcy or a consumer proposal may not be the answer, but they may be able to look at your individual situation and guide you to something better than just struggling with it, okay? But back to this 32%. This is doable. You can do it, okay? $1,600 a month for 36 months, that's gonna get you out of here. Now, let's look at the other way. These are all our minimum payments. If you just continue to make these minimum payments, you would get out of it in about 7.5 years, and you'd pay about $20,000 in interest, okay? So if we're looking at this way, $1,600 a month for 36 months. Okay, Brandy, how do I put these on our debts? Okay, so there's kind of a few schools of thought on how to attack our debts. So the first one is kind of the school of logic, which is go for the highest interest rate one first, because you're going to save the most amount of money. So in that case, I would tell you, continue on the minimum payments on these two, which is $500, and then put the rest of it on this high interest guy. which would be another $1,100. Okay, so you would aggressively pay that down until it was gone, and then you would go to the next one and then the next one. There is another school of thought, and this is Dave Ramsey calls it the snowball effect, and it is where you pay your smallest debt first. And the idea behind this is that it motivates you to keep on going. You get that kind of adrenaline rush from you setting a goal and getting it, and then it motivates you to keep on going. So that, I'm not saying that's wrong. That is an available option for you, and I think that you should do whatever works best for you. But math-wise, it makes most sense to go after the highest interest one first. However, there is another thing that we should consider. Okay, so there's something called when your debt can be callable. So all credit cards and all lines of credit that are issued by a bank are what is called callable. So that means that they could take that, they at any time they could go, okay, first of all, you don't have any more credit extended to you, and second of all, you owe us this money ASAP. So they can do this because they feel like you're risky, or they can do this because it's just a recession and they need that money back. It is well within their rights. So a lot of financial advisors would say go for the callable debts first. Another thing that would make a debt more urgent would be if it was Canada Revenue Agency and they were saying, you know, we're going to garnish your wages, we're going to put a lien on your house. I would really recommend going for that first. Or if you have a collection agency like, you know, calling you every day, like maybe it's worth it to get rid of that one first. It's going to be different for every situation. Okay. So we've talked about how to aggressively pay this down. No matter what order you choose to do it in, that's what I would say. Continue to make your minimum payments on the other debts, and then just get really aggressive with one of them at a time. Because if you just split this $1,600 by 3, it's just going to take, I mean, it will still take 3 years, but you're not maximizing, you're not optimizing the amount of interest that you're saving that way, or you're not optimizing the psychological value of being able to get rid of one, right? So I think having a plan in place is going to help you there. Okay, so then once all these debts are paid off, I'm sure you guys can do your own dreaming, but you could use the extra money to chip away at your mortgage payment, or if you're allowed to make extra payments on your car loan, you could do it that way. Or, you know, you could bolster your savings, you could go on a vacation, you could do a house renovation. Like, there are so many things that are going to be within your reach, guilt-free, because you will not have this debt. But the big thing is, you guys, is you have to stop using the credit, right? If you can make this payment all day long, but if you're still putting money on your credit card, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's the part that we have. This is the spending habit that we need to stop. Okay, so I think we've kind of talked about everything math-wise. Okay, there are some tips to make this easier on you. So first of all, if you're married, your spouse 100% needs to be on board with you on this. It's not going to work if one person is pushing and one person is pulling, okay? This takes serious discipline and focus to work. You need to be each other's accountability partners. One of you is going to slip. One of you is going to stumble, like both of you are going to. So if you can be there for each other, great. And especially if you have children, having this as a family talk can be a super great educational opportunity for them as well. Okay, if you're single, find an accountability partner, best friend or a parent or like an adult child or something, someone that you feel comfortable with telling your financial situation, telling them what your goals are, someone that's going to root for you, right? Like that's going to be really important. Again, the weight loss analogy, studies have shown that your chances of success are greatly improved when you have a buddy to work with, okay? Okay, now that we've done the work, we've done the actual steps of working this out, there are apps you can use on your phone, so it doesn't feel like so much like work, like you have to be at a computer, like clack, clack, clack. But there's also, I'll link a couple apps, like there's Mint and there's YNAB, the You Need a Budget app. But there's also a really awesome budget spreadsheet that I found that I'm gonna link for you as well. I didn't create it, but it's awesome. But like I say, before you're like, oh, well, I'm just going to do that right now. It's important to do this work. It's important to track what you've done in the past 3 months so that you can work to improve it. Okay. Okay. I already talked about not budgeting for windfalls. So again, budget conservatively and it'll be great when you get that extra money. If you're having a tough time controlling your variable expenses, so These guys here, your groceries, your eating out, your entertainment, if you're having a really hard time controlling that, there's some ways. So there's like the envelope system or the jar system, where essentially you take that money out in cash. So you're like, okay, my grocery budget is $600 for the month or $700. You take that cash out, put it in that jar or that envelope. Once that cash is gone, it's gone. You can't use it anymore. Okay, so that's one kind of visual way to work on that. There's tons of stuff. There's tons of stuff on all of this online, you guys. Okay, for fixed expenses, so your mortgage and your rent, you might find it easier. Sorry, my Post-its are all over the place here. You might find it easier to pay your bills every time you get paid. So what I mean is, okay, if you get paid bi-weekly, and your hydro bill is usually $100 a month, you could pay $50 on it on your first check and then $50 on your second check. And I know not, like hydro bill would be fine, but obviously like your rent, your landlord's not interested in getting weekly checks or whatever. But you could set up like a separate bank account, and there's tons of online banks that will give you a bank account for free, or even like with your own bank, you could set up a savings account or whatever. Just, I don't want you paying extra fees for it, but you could go, okay, every time I get paid, I'm going to put half of my rent or half of my mortgage in there, or if you get paid weekly, a quarter of it. And then that way it's not making one big hit on one paycheck. That can be helpful. Be prepared to stumble. I already talked about that. We want to look for progress and not necessarily perfection, okay? So just like being on a diet, just because you have a slice of cake doesn't mean throw your hands up. You're going to stumble. It's going to happen. Just keep trucking. Just keep going. Track it and keep going. Okay. Another really helpful way is to create a visual way to represent your payments to help keep up your motivation. So you can make like a thermometer and like color it in. You can make it like a family event, or you could do like a tree where you take off a leaf for every $100 or whatever. That can be helpful. And then, you know, just keep that goal in mind. Keep reiterating it. Keep talking to your accountability partner, your family about it. Like, when we're through this, we're gonna go on a big vacation, or when we're through this, we're gonna reno our kitchen, or whatever that looks like, so that you keep yourself motivated for the end, okay? And that is pretty much it for today. So next week, we're gonna talk about business budgeting. That should be, I'm pretty excited for it too. Like I'm like I said, I'm a little nerdy when it comes to this kind of stuff. But for today, I'm gonna link you guys some books and other resources. And again, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I love to talk about stuff like this. And we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.